has been taken. And there's a consent agenda which regards the approval of the meeting minutes from February 9. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Can we have a conversation, please?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. And Elena, you want the floor?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I just think that I really appreciate what Danette did as far as trying to capture all of the things that were going on. So I get that there has to be some editing, otherwise it just becomes a script. But I just wanted to know that there was a deeper conversation around the underserved communities that wasn't quite reflected on the minutes. But since we have a recording, I think I would just refer everybody back to that recording if they have any questions.
The recording is up on the top under the sheriff's office comment.
Right.
There is, so if they click on
Yeah.
that, they'll get into the whole.
Whole thing. So just maybe.
Yeah, it should be known that the minutes are not verbatim.
Right,
And
absolutely
and
not.
that's effort to capture what she senses is important, and that's why we go through this exercise of approving minutes. If anybody wants something in particular in minutes, now would be the appropriate time to address that. So I mean, I don't know, with respect to underserved communities, if there's something, and were you there?
No, well, was I there in person? No, I got complaints.
Were you there on the team, Google team? Or
No,
Microsoft?
Microsoft Teams. No,
Okay.
I was not.
All right. All right. So anything else with respect to the meetings? Otherwise, I'll call the question. Those in favor?
May I comment?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Please.
okay. Elena, do you want to add a sentence to the minutes that more information? is
Yeah, I think
available
something
about
that
the
says,
discussion of underserved communities on the recording?
right. So just something that refers back to the recording that was done. And that anybody who has more questions, deeper questions, whatever, it's all captured on the recording.
Can we do that, Danette?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. And with that exception, then I would also agree to the minutes.
You weren't at the meeting,
All right. But I would,
so don't vote on them. Hold on now.
okay.
But your addition is well noted. Anything else with respect to the meeting minutes? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved, and I don't, Alina, have any problem. Every meeting minute can reflect that there's a deeper conversation.
I think this is Mr. Lopez. Is that you?
That's reflected in the recording of the Microsoft Teams.
Well, maybe that's something that we could put on every minute is, that
verbatim.
if you want to further understand the complexities of the meeting, then it would be, it's recorded every time.
All right, so we've done that, and we'll then move to item 4 because I know that there are some people waiting to address the SOARB. And so we'll start the public comment. We have Senator Lopez and we have a couple of people present. Are there others, Danette?
Mr. Lopez is trying to come in. We also have Rachel.
And when I say are there others, here for specifically for public comment?
Yeah, we have Rachel Lorenzo and we have Kathy Roy Ball, Todd Reed, and then we have Maya. But Maya and Rachel and Senator Lopez are on teams, and then present physically is Todd Reed and Kathy Roy Ball.
Okay. And I hope you all won't mind, but we have Senator Lopez, and let me give the floor to her. If you would please limit your comments to 2 minutes. I'll ask Danette to keep time. And then, certainly we don't mind focusing on something specific beyond the 2 minutes if time permits. So we want everybody to have an opportunity to speak. So Senator Lopez, thanks for joining us today, and please unmute her if you can, Danette, and we're privileged to have Senator Linda Lopez present at our meeting.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so very much for this opportunity. First, I'd like to say thank you to each of you for the time you give. As I always say, everybody has a life outside of your commitments, so thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity. I'm Linda Lopez. I serve as the state senator in Senate District 11, which encompasses the Southwest Mesa and the South Valley of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County. I've served in this position now for 28 years. I'm honored to be able to come back and, or should I say, go back to Santa Fe and represent my community. Honored very much. On occasion, I do have an opportunity to kind of sit in and, or not sit in, but actually go online and watch some of the meetings that do happen, not just here in Bernalillo County, the city of Albuquerque, but even for Santa Fe. And the meeting that actually you just approved minutes on and such, I had a chance to listen to the meeting, and it gave me some great concern. And one of the things that I know that I think is a challenge for many of us, not just here in our community, but across this country, is talking about what an underserved community is. And this community I represent is underserved. And what it actually means, from my estimation and my experience, of course, is the fact that if a community doesn't have access, right, for services, healthcare, I mean, the list is long. Over time, it's the unequitable opportunities. That means you're underserved. New Mexico has many communities, and of course, mine is one of them, but they're across the state of New Mexico. And what I would hope, Mr. Chair, is that maybe there would be an opportunity for your group, right, for those of you who are here on this board, maybe to delve into a little bit more conversation and training with regards to some of the issues on equitable access here in our own city and in the county of Bernalillo. I also wanted to mention, Mr. Chair, too, is that I know that there's been kind of an opportunity for you all to come and visit the Southwest Mesa, South Valley of Albuquerque. And I know conflict there always is with regards to calendars. But I would, my background also before the legislature, I used to do training with regards to community policing. And the best opportunity that there is for you to be able to hear from community, because I also believe that is your role, is to find out more information and such that you can then share with our sheriff and his team with regards to maybe some areas of improvement, communication, etc. For us, when I used to do training, is that you don't ask community to come to you in an office. You go to community to begin to build those relationships, to begin to how should I say, knock down walls, even sometimes it's piece by piece. But I would hope that you all would consider still coming to my community in the South Valley, Southwest Mesa to listen to us and maybe begin a dialogue and a conversation about maybe some areas of improvement. Again, my community is underserved traditionally. We're constantly working at it, appreciative of all the services I know that we do have, but there's still an issue of equity for opportunity and, for having their voice to be heard. I've worked on it, as many of my colleagues also have, in different venues with our county commissioner and such. But I think you all have a very important role. And I was just dismayed to hear that conversation. And Mr. Chair, I would hope that you and your board would maybe consider an opportunity to have some conversation and some training so that the conversation can maybe be, how should I say, some more guidance added. It's an issue that we deal with in the legislature, so it's a constant. So I want to say I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words today. But again, thank you to each of you for your time.
Thank you so much, Senator Lopez. And certainly that has been a concern of this board. I'm not sure the precise conversation that we had at the last meeting, but it continues to be a concern. Elena Giacci on our board has been a great champion for that community. And I know that she had attempted to arrange a meeting And so we had some limitations around that. Perhaps that can still happen, I'm hoping. And we can iron out whatever difficulties caused us not to take advantage the last time it was offered to us. So thank you so much, and training would be appreciated. So we're, I think, very open to that. And thank you, thank Elena for championing the underserved communities. Fellow board members, are there any questions specific to her comment? I hope you will continue to stay and listen to Senator Lopez. I know you're busy, but you're certainly welcome. And Ms. Roybal, you want to be next? Okay. It sure is.
My name is Kathy Roy, and I'm also in South Valley.
And Ms. Roybal, I don't know if there's a microphone there. I'm having.
You need to speak
Can
loud.
call-
Okay.
And we have Joseph is present now, Mr. Lopez. Can you hear Joseph?
Yes, Judge, I can hear you. I was having
I'll
some
just give him
problems with my computer. I can't hear now.
Why don't you sit at the table?
Thank you.
All right, there's perfect. That might work.
Okay. I'm sorry that you disrupted like that.
So my name is Kathy Roybal, and I just wanted to come today. This is the first time I've been to this board. I was invited before, but I just haven't been able to attend. This week, I was telling Janet that I woke up to news saying something about how to make deputies more accountable, and I shot up right out of bed. The title itself is absurd. It's an irrelevant and ignorant statement. I'm here today to say thank you and job well done to the deputies of Bernalillo County. I wish the general public could know how many times a deputy has changed the life of a victim and even a perpetrator. To know the impact of not only a deputy-involved shooting, where there are days of mental health and questioning, how a deputy feels when they approach a car after being the first one on scene of a terrible traffic accident, and how they feel answering a call from a child left in a hot car. Or how heartbroken they are when they go to a call where children are abused or neglected, and how much they want to do everything and anything within their power to help the children, all while remaining professional and respectful within the home. My husband and I attended the BCSO Citizens Academy in 2022, and although we have a second-hand close relationship with the Sheriff's Office, it was so amazing and informative that we have since recommended attendance to all of our friends and family. If you want to know more about each and every department, then we highly recommend attending the Citizens Academy. Here, you get to know firsthand what each of the deputies, each of the departments handle and are so proud and committed to. It's very important and refreshing. I'm sure that after attending, comments such as making them more accountable will be removed from headlines and meeting agendas. I would argue that any deputy needs to become more accountable. The idea is ridiculous. I wish that every citizen could know someone in law enforcement as we do and see them as individually as their parents, spouses, and brothers and sisters do. It is nothing like to say that these deputies and all law enforcement officers absolutely risk their lives every day to add a provocation that they aren't doing their jobs, should be held more accountable. Sorry, I may have to leave soon. I have to have some waiting for me at home, but I just wanted to make sure and say that. I'm not sure if I got off on the wrong foot. The first thing I heard in the morning was that comment, and it made me mad, really upset, because not only do these deputies get up every morning and do this job, but they do it perfectly.
Thank you, Ms. Roybal. And I don't know, I might have been the commenter, and perhaps you just caught a portion of
I think so.
that statement, because and Estevan would be able to elaborate, have been on the pitch to get more public participation. So we appreciate you coming and saying that. And there was not only a pitch for accountability, but for public comment. And so I imagine we'll hear comment across the spectrum of feelings, but yours is not lost. Thank you for being here.
And the request was for comments, compliments, complaints, the whole gamut.
And I hit
So-
a number of media outlets and so if one of them edited it down to accountability, then that wasn't quite accurate, but thank you. And sir, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Todd Reed.
Mr. Reed, you signed up to speak. Would you like to approach the podium as
I
well?
would like to.
Okay,
My wife, Joni Buchanan, went to school with you. I don't know if you remember her.
and I remember the Buchanans.
Tell you to say hi.
Well, tell her I said hi back.
Absolutely. Spoke very highly of her. I couldn't agree with you more. So that's why I'm here. And I just love our law enforcement. I do disagree with a little bit of what the senator said. I grew up in the Southwest Valley. And statistics show that most of the problems are due to welfare institutions that have been implemented and minimum wage. It's just a given. That's what's causing the problems within the country, especially with those that are underdeserved. What I wanted to talk about, and I had a concern, and I had seen that an Ohio sheriff was talking the other day that 3,300 sheriffs went to talk to the FBI director, and they were explaining that the FBI director, Christopher Wray, said that there's more red flags going on right now than before 9/11. And so, a red flag went up with me. And he said, people crossing the border are wanting to harm us. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And they went on to explain the Islamic, the head of the Islamic Party is here, Hamas, Hezbollah, Chinese are here. Thousands are coming across. They're bringing Glocks with bump stocks, making them automatic weapons. After that meeting, several of the sheriffs, and I don't know if our sheriff was there at that meeting, but several of them went to Israel to find out what we could do to prevent what happened to them. And they said the only thing that could happen that would prevent that is if our communities and civilians were well prepared and they were evenly armed. So he said, unless our communities are armed and prepared, it's going to happen. We have Chinese safe houses here in this state and throughout the country. We have thousands, well, actually millions of illegal immigrants that have come across, and they're concerned about that. And we don't know, they said, we don't know if they're mentally ill. We don't know if they're terrorists. We don't know what the issue is. But we do know that we've caught several Hamas and Hezbollah individuals coming across and Chinese coming across the border. So my question, of course, it's a huge concern I have and for my family. First of all, is the unconstitutional laws that were passed by the New Mexico legislature and by Governor Grisham concerning our gun laws. We are already outgunned, right? They have more than we have. We don't have access to automatic weapons. They have automatic weapons.
And sir, the time is going to run short on you. So if you can sum up.
I'm going to do it right now.
Okay.
What I was wondering is, has the sheriff come up with some form of task force? Because what the sheriff in Ohio is doing is he's got a task force. He's saying a rifle needs to be in every vehicle, a go bag with extra magazines, training civilians on what to do in case of emergencies, preparedness and readiness if attacked, and being able to shoot down drones, because those are here. Chinese have brought that across the border, and cyber protection 24/7. So I was just wondering, I mean, you don't have to do it now. I know this is just me talking, but maybe there can be a press conference. I'm willing to participate. I know several other people are willing to participate in something to train our communities to prepare for this. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else? We have others to
Yeah.
comment.
Yes, we have Maya or Maha, I don't want to mispronounce her name, and she's on.
Yes, it's Maha. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. We
Hello,
can hear
hello.
you.
Excellent.
Please go ahead.
Good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for allowing me to contribute a few words. My name is Maha Al-Khatib, and I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. I wanted to share some feedback regarding the recording of your February 9th discussion. I was quite surprised to hear members of your esteemed board question the definition of the term underserved. and also challenging its inclusion in the 2024 strategic plan. I spent the last few decades working to prevent and address human trafficking and domestic violence locally, nationally, and internationally. And I've had the privilege of engaging with individuals and groups across diverse backgrounds, including underserved communities. The 2021 Executive Order 13985 defines underserved communities as those who have been denied consistent and systematic, fair, just, and impartial treatment. The order specifies the underserved as Black, Latino, Indigenous, Native American, Asian American, Pacific Islanders, other persons of color, religious minorities, LGBTQ+, persons with disabilities, persons who live in rural areas, and persons otherwise adversely affected by persistent poverty or inequality. The 2023 Executive Order 14091 expands that definition to include women and girls. It's an incredibly wide swath of the American population. For those of you who are unclear on the definition of underserved, I ask you, do you have female constituents? Do you represent people from rural areas, people with disabilities, people affected by persistent poverty, people that are Native, Black, Brown, or Asian, LGBTQI+ people, people that are members of religious minorities? As a multiracial woman with a disability who was raised as a member of a religious minority and as a committed public servant, I ask you to take a careful look at your constituents. It is likely that most, if not all, of the communities defined as underserved are reflected across those you serve. As members of this board, each of you have graciously volunteered your time, your expertise, and your wisdom in the service of creating stronger community ties between Bernalillo County constituents and the Sheriff's Office. So I ask you what changes might be required of you to honor your community as a whole? And how can Bernalillo County work toward adopting a unified approach as one indivisible county, verbally and in guiding documents, where all your constituents matter, to become a model for other counties across the US? A county-funded program to educate your SOARB and county commission members on the underserved throughout each district would be a great place to start. And I hope it's something that your esteemed board will consider. Thank you all for your commitment and effort.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Questions or comments?
Think she makes great points. So far, all of our speakers have done.
Very good.
I
Thank
appreciate
you. Are
it.
there others?
Yeah, there is a Rachel Lorenzo.
Ms. Lorenzo?
Rachel.
Hello, everyone. Giacci Hopa. My name is Rachel Lorenzo. I'm from the Pueblo of Laguna and the Mescalero Apache tribe. Born and raised in this great state, and I've lived in Albuquerque for over 14 years. Thank you for allowing the community to come say a few words. I'd like to affirm the need to include underserved communities in any strategic planning. I see it as a great opportunity to reach out within the city or throughout the state to find local facilitators or organizers who have a very specific skill set to educate um, elected officials or appointees about um, about social issues that definitely impact underserved communities. And I really appreciate the definition that Maha gave earlier that includes those who have not had any consistent support. And we can definitely see a divide in the difference in access to various resources throughout different parts of the city, and that's always a concern. And so hopefully that's a more visual representation of what underserved means, you know, looking at the South Valley versus the Northeast Heights. Um, at any rate, these facilitators have this very unique skill to help folks not only understand the landscape, but also identify for themselves any potential biases or assumptions that you didn't know you might have, and how to navigate those. I do agree with Senator Lopez about her assessment of what underserved communities are. So thank you, Senator. And the point she brought up about hearing from community members. As a tribal liaison at the New Mexico State Land Office under Commissioner Garcia Richard, my job was to figure out ways to meet tribes where they are. And I'm a community organizer by training. That's what I started out as. And it's always a good idea to go to community rather than having them come to you. For example, just looking at the folks who are able to come here in the middle of a work day, a lot of folks from Senator Lopez's district would not be able to do that because they are working multiple jobs and they might be getting off of work late. And so they wouldn't have the time to come to a community meeting to have their voice heard. And I think that's a really important aspect to the concern about what underserved means and making sure it's included. Because again, I think we need to be very honest with each other and ourselves about who's able to participate in meetings like this or even in the legislature.
And
And
Ms. Lorenzo, you're probably over the 2 minutes. So if you would,
I'm so
please
sorry.
sum up. That's all right. Please continue.
At any rate, thank you for your time, and I look forward to the cool things that this board can accomplish.
Well, we thank you for your input and passion for the underserved. And trust me, we've been educated and will continue to seek education in that area. And please don't hesitate to remind us of that constituency. Are there others to
Thank you.
speak? Thank you.
I just have a 22809 number, 0918.
I see it flashing. If that person would identify themselves, are you here to speak? And I don't think they're muted.
No.
So perhaps they're not desiring to speak. Anyone else to address the SOARB?
No, there's nobody else.
Okay. Well, again, let me, on behalf of the board, express appreciation to all those who have come to speak. I don't know how you heard about the opportunity. I want to thank Estevan for his effort. I want to thank Mr. Wesmer for crafting a strategic plan that includes reaching out to the community in an effort to get more input. I want to thank Elena for all that she's done to make sure that we're reaching out to communities that do not traditionally come in and that we will need to go out to. I also want to say that in each and every meeting, the sheriff's office is a component and represented. And so we're not necessarily the issue, but the conduit into the sheriff's office, the county commission, and the public. And so on every agenda, there is room for the sheriff to comment. But moreover, in every meeting, there is room for the sheriff to listen. So I'm sure Undersheriff Jareno is appreciative of those comments that he's heard. And if there aren't other public comments, we'll move to item 5, sheriff's office comments. And I think we've anticipated, and hopefully Undersheriff Jareno has anticipated making some comments. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As the sheriff had promised at the beginning of the year, he was going to send one of us to your guys' meetings. And he had said at the time that we were going to be given an update in our air unit and our drone program specifically. I oversee those two. I implemented the drone program last year when we came into our new administration. It's a project that I had worked on 3 years ago. It never came to fruition under the previous administration. So now that I have the opportunity to get it going, I certainly did. It took a long time, but it's a program that is already in progress. So speaking of the drone program, we initiated the program last year. Part of the program was to write up the SOP for it and the protocols for launching. We did all of that through a lot of legal advice, as well as complying with FAA regulations for that program. All of that was certified by them, but we wanted to go a little bit more over that, what we were just already doing. We also got the first drone training in the state of New Mexico certified by the state. So we're the only law enforcement agency who has an in-house drone program that is certified by them. And that didn't only allow us to have a more robust program, but also to train our own people, which allows us the ability to train in-house without having to send people and pay somebody else to do it. It's just fiscally responsible if we have experts in a matter. So why wouldn't we train them our own? So that's the way we're doing. I put the drone program under the umbrella of our air unit because it's considered an aircraft by the FAA. And our full-time TFO, which is a tactical flight officer, he is the one who handles all the training for that program. We started, if I remember correctly, last year with 4 drones. By the end of this month, we'll have over 20. A lot of those are assigned at the moment to specialty units. Our SWAT team has the vast majority of them. They're exterior and interior drones for their operations. The rest of them are spread out between a couple in the field for patrol deputies and CSI for crime investigation and diagramming. They're using it. Our traffic unit uses it. The reason why I put a drone with the traffic unit is because it's way faster to diagram a crash scene, which is considered a crime scene, with a drone than with the system that we were using before. Before we had to shut down, and obviously, and of course, it all depends on the amount of evidence on the road, but we were averaging between 2 to 3 hours if we had to shut down a road for a fatal crash to do the diagramming and then reopen the road. Now it takes us about 45 minutes to do it with the drone. So it's been definitely a tool that is being used a lot. Other than learning how to fly a drone, there's a training component that has to do what do we do with the information that the drone captures to transfer it to a diagram program to actually make the evidentiary purpose that we use the drone for. So that's been a phenomenal program. We didn't want to go all in at the beginning buying too many drones before we actually knew how to use them. So we were also trying to be as fiscally responsible as possible, try to get money from grants to purchase those drones, which I believe all of them except for one was purchased with the grant money. None of those purchases came from our budget. Now in reference to the air unit, I don't want to ruin the surprise with what kind of helicopter it is, but the county came out huge and they did support us incredibly with the acquisition of a new helicopter. The helicopter is not here yet. I won't speak about what type of helicopter it is, but I will speak about the purpose of that helicopter. The purpose of that helicopter is 100% for search and rescue. The search and rescue component of our air unit is incredible tool to have. We were on the last 5 to 6 years. I was the supervisor of the air unit 3 years ago, so I have some knowledge on the program. We were averaging between 55 to 60 rescues a year. That's potentially 55 to 60 lives that were saved every single year.
Is that in Bernalillo County, Undersheriff? Is that
in the entire state of New Mexico? We are the only air unit in the country, not in the state of New Mexico, in the country, that is a 3-pronged unit, that we have law enforcement, that we have doctors from UNM, they're actual doctors, and firefighters. There's no other air unit in the country that has the same capabilities that we have and the training that we had. So when we lost our 4 members of our unit in the helicopter crash in 2022, it was devastating to the community, obviously devastating to our office, but devastating because of the capabilities that we lost at the time. So we are revamping that program. That also falls under my purview. We rewrote the entire standard operating procedure for the air unit, and on top of the SOP, standard operating procedure, we added an SOG. The SOG is 47 pages long about the day-to-day operations and launch protocols for any type of aircraft that we use with the air unit. Those were all revised by me. We went through several drafts until we came to the finalized version. And that's what governs the air unit right now. A year later, being last week, we finally completed our first week-long training for search and rescue with a new pilot, a new sergeant, a new TFO, couple of firefighters. The UNM team came and trained with us with a whole new hoist system that we had on the same helicopter that we still had, which is Metro 1. It's not our search and rescue helicopter, but we did have the capabilities to do hoisting from that helicopter. So we drafted a training for it. So when we do receive, in fact, the new helicopter, when it arrives, we'll have 2 different platforms to perform search and rescue.
Pardon my interruptions.
But
Will both helicopters be exclusively search and rescue?
no.
Okay.
So the helicopter that we have now, Metro 1, has the capabilities to do search and rescue, but that is a patrol helicopter that we use now. There is a lot of components on safety and capabilities of a specific helicopter that if you can use it for search and rescue or not. So for example, the helicopter we have now, Metro 1, if we have a rescue at the top of the Sandias and the weather is too hot, we cannot get to the top of the Sandias. So the helicopter that we're bringing in is a helicopter that will have the ability, well, it actually does have the ability to get to the top of the Sandias and more. The hoisting capabilities are way higher, longer. The safety components of that specific helicopters are top of the line in the world, which will not only put our team as far as the training goes, but now the equipment will be comparable to the training capabilities that our program has. So I think it's the first time that we have accomplished this, and it wasn't us, it's been the state of New Mexico through the legislative session. They did support us during the legislative session last year. But the county came out, is kudos to the county because they took the biggest burden of the financial aspect of it. So hopefully we'll be here. It's expected to be here June 1st. So if it's here June 1st, we'll invite everybody to come see it. But we're geared up, we're ready to go for this year. That's all I got.
Well, thank you.
I have some questions.
Thank you. Mr. Wismer had his hand up
Oh, okay.
at one point.
Mr. Wismer? He's muted.
Now he's-
Did you have something, Mr. Wismer?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to compliment the sheriff's aviation unit for standing back up and using all the tools available. And I know personally how difficult drone pilot training can be because I started that program at Los Alamos National Lab a few years back. So it's a bit of a challenge to get people ready to fly those drones and to do them accurately and to keep the data where it's supposed to be. So hats off to you guys. We appreciate the use of technology to advance law enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wismer. Ms. Giacci?
So you had mentioned the policies, procedures, protocols that you kind of established for that. It would be wonderful if you could share. I'm sure you work very, 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 very hard at that. And so it would be great if you could share that maybe like next time or send them to us or any of that. That would be wonderful. The second part would be, you had mentioned about the info and it being stored. Is there a length of time that you keep, like if there's active cases, you probably keep those forever, but how long do you keep the drone video stored and where does it get stored?
They're all through the same evidence system that we have now with Axon.
Okay,
So our drones have the Axon system and the evidence system that we have with Axon have the ability to connect through a software through our drones. So our drones are not only piloted through the same program, but our evidence gets uploaded to the same evidence.com that is the housing evidence for Axon.
okay.
For how long we hold the evidence, that depends on what classification the evidence is. Because if it is, let's say we took video and there is a no foundings, or if there is a first-degree felony and versus a misdemeanor, it's gonna be different, the retention process for it. So it depends on the classification, much like any other video that we have with our body-worn cameras.
And when you do that, you had mentioned how many, and certain ones are already placed in like certain areas.
Mhm.
But do you have an area, like if I looked, would I be able to go, oh, they're in, my area, or it's like, oh, good, they're not in my area? I mean, is there something that would show how often you deploy drones to a certain area or like search and rescue or whatever that is? Is there some format for that?
Yeah, we do keep track of the flight time because the flight time, every recording for everything on the drone falls under FAA regulations because it's considered an aircraft. So everything is logged for the drones. We have, speaking of technology, are the softwares that we have functioning through the drones control which pilot, which unit, the altitude, the flight pattern, same as if it was a helicopter.
Right. And is that public information or no?
No, that's all falls under FAA, so you'll have to pretty much IPRA the FAA.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's a fun. All right. Thank you. That would be great if we could see those pieces. And do we get to take a look at the drone?
How they look?
Well, like how they look and how they operate. I mean,
Yeah,
that
I
would
mean,
be,
we have 4 different models of drones depending the function. So the ones that the traffic unit and CSI unit, they're the bigger ones because of the payload that they have,
right.
because of the zoom, the camera system, their infrared, the lens has to be so accurate. So I can actually diagram crash scenes on 3D just by flying it. It's not the same case as the interior, and they're pretty big, those two. Then the medium size, if you will, they're probably about this big. Those are the ones that open space unit uses for search and rescue. And there are a couple of those with the SWAT team for outer perimeter on their calls. And the smaller ones are interior drones. They're small, and those are the ones that we deploy on the SWAT calls inside a location. So we don't actually send our guys in if the situation permits.
Are they all infrared or just some of them are infrared?
Some of them are infrared camera. Those interior ones have heat signal. As far as infrared camera capabilities, the bigger ones, the one that CSI has and traffic unit has, they're the most powerful ones. That's why they're the most expensive ones.
My question was just about interior drones, but you answered it.
Those are the ones we have the most because those are the ones that are more likely to get damaged.
Interior.
Get shot at.
Yeah, I mean, somebody can just smack one of them or, so those are the most, but they're also the cheaper ones, so that's good.
Mr. Stewart.
Undersheriff, has the NTSB completed their investigation of the aircraft that crashed?
I believe so, because we haven't heard anything.
Okay. So lessons learned from that investigation, was that rolled into?
No, we don't know what the investigation is going to find. It hasn't been completed,
No, it has not. Is that what you said?
that we know of.
I don't think it has.
My guess is usually, for what I know, it takes them 3, 4, 5 years sometimes.
Wow.
Okay.
Gentlemen, did you say something?
I apologize. I don't think it has, and I just wanted to reiterate what he says. I've kind of been tracking that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else of the undersheriff? Appreciate your participation, your presence and participation, your report,
Thank you all.
and we won't keep you. If you want to stay, certainly feel free to.
I'm the only one in town, so I'm cool, handle business. Thank you all. Thank you all that attended virtually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, colleagues, then we're gonna move to item 6 on the agenda of actually 8 items, I think, or there a few under new business, but at any rate, we have in item 6, a discussion on the SOARB meetings or listening sessions at other locations. We have Ms. Giacci and my name there. Elena, we have for some amount of time attempted to pull off these listening sessions. So, give us your thoughts on how we can best get that done.
Well, I think we were headed in the right direction when we started working with Linda, only because she had the connection of doing something on the weekends and like after hours and those types of things. Very much of what some of the community that was represented talked about, and making sure that, trying to do it during a work day, work week, work time makes it very difficult for those communities. So doing that, but I do think she was able to get that without a cost on a weekend. And I think we could try to continue to pursue it, especially down the South Valley. I think that would be a great place to start. And I think maybe making the commitment of having at least 3 of our meetings in different places, and then maybe a couple of listening sessions, one which we could try to schedule again. So, I mean, that's my hope.
Yeah.
And then I know it was very difficult, and Jeanette worked really hard to try to get the sheriff to be there, but, he was busy doing other things. So even if
I think with that last one, though, we even made a specific effort. I know I made an overture to the sheriff and said, well, maybe in the spring. So maybe it's something that, but I don't think that we're able to, pin him down
very well
within a week or
yeah.
So we're gonna have to give him some time. And I think, Danette, is it possible that we can get other venues?
We tried the libraries. I know there's the Patrick J. Baca Library, which is right there off of.
I feel like I ought to stand up
Central.
on Patrick J. Baca's mentioned.
Me too.
That-
I walked.
Do you guys know him?
He's a principal in my junior high school.
I know.
I'm not trying,
I'll tell you the
trust
neighborhood.
me, I'm not trying to date anybody. I'm just saying, what suggestions are there within the city that are in kind of those areas we're looking at? And it's the same thing as when we were trying to get the Tommy Jewell
Well, we don't have to stay up to that.
area.
Even though
Yeah, we couldn't get the Tommy Jewell.
The room,
Right.
we don't have the.
He didn't have the pool,
It's at the
so
library.
he didn't have the pool, but that's okay.
That's right.
Yeah,
Same concept, library card. I did give a call. Most of them don't do Friday evenings, but Monday through Thursday, they do till 8 o'clock.
We can't.
And then Saturdays and Sundays also.
Yeah, so I think that was the thing, is Saturdays and Sundays were a little bit problematic at some of the places, and that's why we got Senator Lopez involved for,
Okay, and
pulling the strings.
there was not a rub, but I appreciate the senator going to bat for us. The question came up, I believe, wow, here we are, a part of the county. Can we know that this is not a political endorsement?
Right.
As we would be prohibited from endorsing any candidate or,
Right, but I think,
political officer.
if we offer Senate and representative to be present, regardless of party, and county commission, anybody that wants to
Nonpartisan.
come in that area, I think should be welcome because it's their
Well, I don't
constituents.
think it's a problem with them
Yeah.
coming, is it, Daniel?
No,
The problem would be if they're co-sponsoring and it's,
yes, it's the intermingling of the politics in the county, but I thought this was just a meeting with the community, right?
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
that's it.
And so, yeah, obviously Senator Lopez, in addition to being an esteemed member of the legislature, is a member of that community.
Should
And
be.
Yes, he
would
is.
certainly be welcome to come.
28
So-
years.
So I'll work on the next one to be able to do that, and Danette and I will try to get. Is the option open, is this board open to, if the sheriff can't make it, that we have one or both or many of the deputy chiefs
Yes,
represented, because I think it was hard because Danette was on it, trying to get the sheriff to be there. And as soon as we talked about it, before it even came out of mouth, she's like, okay, let me go ahead. So I think it's problematic if people are open to, it doesn't have to be the sheriff, but representatives will be invited. And of course, we would try to do it with the sheriff, but if he's not available, because that's kind of what stalled the other times.
question, can this be a Zoom meeting as well? The libraries can set up Zoom, right?
I don't think it would, again, probably every library is at a different technology point than others, right? But that's something we can ask when we put in there. I think when you go into, say it asks if you want to use certain types of things, so
So in other words, Dr.
we
Lee,
can definitely make sure it
you'd
has
ask
that.
that they make that a consideration.
If that's possible.
I think it's one thing. I think the other thing is that when we are looking at the underserved communities, oftentimes that is not something that is available all the time. It's those kind of technology pieces.
So it
that
would be the pleasure of the board if you guys are just willing to just have no technology, no teams, and just have a place for that. Okay, that would help to channel.
Here's the problem I see with that, Danette, and particularly if it's Saturday or after hours. The board is not in a position to obligate your time after whatever the workday is or on a weekend.
Problem.
And I don't know to what extent we would have to have a record if it is our meeting. But we might have to rely on technology
To record. If
for
you're-
such a meeting.
Not making any decisions and it's just a session, then no actions, no nothing required, then you're not required to have any type of minutes or any of that, right? But you can't make any votes or any decisions.
Right.
Of course, if we're bringing this feedback,
Right.
we would want something.
Kind of like we do our special sessions
Right.
for the annual.
Question, is it possible to record the meeting?
Well, but the flip side of that is, do we want it recorded? I mean, people may want to come and say, this is the problem, but may not want to be recorded. And,
Okay,
so I think that's the component as well, is that you have the freedom to, recording. I don't like to be recorded when I go to public meetings, but
okay.
there are
under
times.
questions. Debbie?
No, I think that it cuts both ways, because first of all, people are not restricted to making comments by coming to a meeting physically. They can make an anonymous written comment, and that's been part of our procedure almost since the beginning. So that's an option that's available to anyone who's not comfortable being recorded, coming physically, whatever. But I also think that if you have a meeting that is, you know, on Zoom or whatever, it possibly opens it to more people. So there's two sides to that. You know, somebody may want to make a comment and not be recorded. And somebody else may only be able to come in on a recorded conversation. I don't think we could have a meeting where we record part of it and then not the rest of it. I don't know what our obligation is, Danielle. Do you have a thought on that?
You have two options. If it's a meeting like today, you're obligated to at least have minutes, which I recorded. We recorded with Teams. If it's a listening session where nothing will be done, then it's probably easier to just not record because there's not an obligation at that.
Okay, then we have to announce it that way. This is a listening session.
Right, and we would.
Yeah,
And we're
put it
not
on the
recording
website.
it, and we're not taking minutes.
Right.
But there still has to be
You just
prior.
put no
notice.
action is
Is
gonna
that correct? About,
Yeah.
what, 2 weeks, 7 days? I'm not sure.
The county has a,
96 hours.
yes.
But if there's
What is
gonna
that in
be,
days?
I know. I'm like 96 days, okay,
96
96 hours.
hours.
we can do. That's a good one.
Okay, I have a question. Can Estevan and Daniel and Danette attend and get comp time if we have it on the weekend and get a day off? Is that possible? Has that been done?
We could do flex time. I'm salaried, I think he's salaried, you're salaried, so yes.
Would you object to attending if you
Well,
had no comp?
that's probably putting them in a bad position.
I know.
I think
I
like
don't need.
Yeah,
if this is, so you're gonna do it a listening session, Esteban would probably be there because of the communication part. So I'm sure he would have to, he'd want to be there to make sure it's all up and going, right? I don't have any objection to having to be there. There's not gonna be notes taken, so maybe just help for setup and make sure
we
it
don't
gets
want to
done.
put you in that position.
Yeah.
You can-
Daniel, if
you can
anything
discuss it.
legally happens, I don't think you guys are gonna
You
go
can
too
discuss it in your
crazy,
respective-
but I think,
I mean,
You
yeah.
can discuss it in your respective offices.
yeah, I
Right.
think, you know, we're fine.
Okay.
but if that's a
Don't worry.
consideration, then in making the plan to have this meeting, their schedules need to be taken into account as well.
But, and, you know, if, without taking their schedules into account, let's say we can have a listening session, and it's not necessary to have all this talent available to us, we're just there to listen.
Right.
But if we do have them, then that's a plus.
Then they'll keep us out of trouble.
Yeah,
Yes, they keep us out of trouble.
yeah.
'Cause you
Okay.
know how we are.
But also there's the issue of publicizing a meeting, not just, and I think that's where a lot of, you know, I think a lot of the people who spoke here today, you know, were under the impression that there were members of this board who didn't accept that there are underserved communities. And I was not at the last meeting, but I did watch it. And I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is more, how do we communicate with these underserved communities to let the people in those communities know that this board is available for them to make comments. And I think that's still an issue. Like, you know, you can have an interview with Judge Jewell and with Estevan on KRQE. But is that reaching the group of people that we are trying to reach? And I think that's part of the dilemma of, certainly of some members of this board. And I don't know that we have a handle on that.
As with any board, Madam Vice Chair, we have a spectrum, you know, of views.
Right.
And so.
And
I mean,
understanding.
We're all over that spectrum. And we're not above educating, you know, I am very proud of sitting here and listening to some diverse perspectives on, you know, service of, well, I mean, we went from the national to the local with respect to perspectives. And we're, you know, a funnel for that kind of information. And then we can come back and discuss that and say, well, you know, we need to make a recommendation on this, or, you know, there's really nothing for the sheriff in that one. You know, maybe he needs to be a part, he needs to be with FBI Director Ray, the next time they have a discussion, let's make sure that that happens, whatever that is. Or, so, you know, I'm proud that we accept that role. We're not above educating, but we're not the ultimate, service that needs to be effective. So let's understand that.
Can we hear from Senator Lopez on this discussion? Senator Lopez?
Actually, can she hear us?
I appreciate, thank you. If I may, just add in that, I think what would add more value to any discussion, of course, is you are making recommendations to the sheriff and his team, of course, listening to community. And in my efforts and working with Elena, Ms. Giacci, of course, was to try and secure a facility, because my community, we are a working class community, and it's a much better opportunity for us to be able to be present and share some information and some concerns, I think, that then you can share with the sheriff, which I think is part of your role that you have also. So I appreciate the discussion you're having, and of course, I'm more than willing to help out in any way, shape, or form. But the community center that I was able to secure for a potential meeting does have Wi-Fi and such too. So there could be access for, if you wish to have a Zoom, Teams meeting, or whatever system you're using. As long as somebody has a computer, you can hook up to it, because we've had meetings there that would do that.
All right, well, thank you for that. Mr. Wismer, was there anything that you wanted to interject? Michael, are you with us still? Okay. So your mission, should you choose to accept it?
I will accept it again.
Okay, thank you.
So, and I will work hard if anybody else wants to work on that. Jim, would you like to help work on that?
I have a very difficult time saying no.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, Senator Lopez, what community center, or what is the name that you're talking about? Sorry, is it in the county, or?
It's in the county. It's Lada Solo
Okay.
Center. I call it Lada Solo, but it's the South Valley Multipurpose Center.
We're familiar. Yes, and they are connected for
Yes,
Wi-Fi.
they are. Yes, they are. I've used it for other community meetings, and it's not political. They're community meetings for dialogue with the community.
Mr. Wismer is back. He's got his hand up.
How to can vegetables and all that too.
Mr. Wismer?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that I had a little problem with my computer here answering when you asked me to, so my apologies, but I am fully in support of this. I think in summary of our discussions at the last meeting was we were trying to reach out to as many communities as we possibly could. And this is one way to do it. And I fully 100% support it.
Thank you. Anything else on that, colleagues? The logos look like they're needing our help.
Can we suggest a month for a meeting? Should it be the June meeting? We're now in March. We need time to publicize it and plan it. How about the June meeting in the South Valley? Now,
Well,
is this
wait a
a
minute.
separate meeting? right?
Yeah, this is.
A separate, we're talking about
A listening session.
Okay,
So-
can we hold that in June?
You know, what I would like to do is maybe, see when it's available, number
Okay.
one. Number two,
Well, that can be committee discussion.
Right,
We don't have to-
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Okay.
thinking.
Okay.
Recommending some, talk, how long everybody gets to talk, and
All
then
right.
Jim and I can come forward.
You drafted Jim. Anybody else you want?
Well, Senator Lopez.
Senator Lopez. Senator Lopez, will you accept that draft?
I know.
Okay, she's on. She's on.
Go.
And then,
And then that, of course.
Ms. Giacci, enough time for Estevan to get something out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we'll try, because I think that's critical to make sure, and having, like you said, pre-interviews and things like that, inviting people and doing what we can to utilize Senator Lopez's contacts and
Yes.
Everybody.
For something that's purely a listening session, but it's a SOARB listening session. Does there need to be a quorum?
No,
Okay.
because we're not taking any votes,
I-
right?
As long as you're
I
not.
think if I'm hearing Daniel correctly, as long as we're not making decisions,
Mhm.
we're fine with any component
Okay.
of us.
When it's put out there, it'll be no action will be taken.
Mhm.
Got it.
And this is a listening session. It'll be put out there when.
Right.
So I want to give you that feedback, Daniel, because I know oftentimes when I talk to my clients, they hear something different than I'm.
No, she.
Keep making dollars.
There's no need for a quorum, just to be clear.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all for that. Okay, so can we then move to new business? We have under new business update on the 2024 SOARB strategic plan. Estevan, did you want to say that? Again, thank you for your effort, and you can kind of report on what you did and the result that we got.
Okay. Well, it was a very successful outreach campaign. Judge Jewell did a fabulous job in getting the word out. The news release was well received, and it's worth noting that in the news release itself and in the appearances that were made by Judge Jewell, there was a specific reference to an effort to invite people who, I believe Judge Jewell used the word reticent, to those individuals who have been reticent to go directly to the sheriff's office. And in the news release, I believe the word was who have been reluctant, who are reluctant to go directly to the sheriff. So that effort that is documented in the strategic plan was executed both in the interviews by Judge Jewell as well as in the news release itself. And so it was with Judge Jewell did a live appearance with TJ Trout at KKOB on the Bob Clark Morning Show, also on KKOB, on KOAT, and on the KRQE Morning Show. So it was just a big success, and thank you, Judge Jewell, for making yourself available, including at some kind of early in the morning calls, and well done. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Esteban, for arranging all of that. And colleagues, I really appreciate the vote of trust in having me in front of a camera or a microphone. But it doesn't just have to be me. If any of you want to take up some of this public speaking role, I will not just throw you out there. Esteban is great at keeping me on task, and I think the little title that I have enjoyed is helpful. People tend to and so I can get dragged into a conversation about how the bench was 20 years ago. And Esteban is real good about reeling us back in and making sure that we stay on task in terms of inviting people, particularly underserved people, who we want to get to speak at our meetings. But you all are capable of giving that message, and so if you want to be included in that, I'm pleased to share that with you all. So feel free to. I won't draft anybody now, Vice Chair, but.
Thank you.
But you all do a good job, whether it's before the county commission or, in front of a TV camera or microphone, so don't hesitate.
I think Michael has his hand up.
Oh, Michael, yes, Mr. Wismer. He may still be having problems.
Yeah.
Did you have further comment, Michael?
Oh, no, I didn't. I just didn't bring my hand down fast enough, so I apologize.
All right. Joseph's okay. Okay, nothing else on that? Anything else on that?
Are we still in new business?
Oh, yeah, we're definitely still in new business. And on that, I think Vice Chair had made the comment, and it's well taken, that doing the typical news outlets may not necessarily yield the new doing the same thing the same way will not yield a different result. And so, I mean, if there are other news outlets or information channels that we need to hit those folks that we want to get to the meetings, please let us know.
Even putting out flyers in the neighborhood, in
yeah.
the community
Well, and
centers.
Estevan had said,
Flyers.
yeah, gosh, there's Spanish radio, but, Jewell, I've heard your Spanish and
You don't want to hear mine either. so.
That's when Senator Lopez. would be very
Poquito.
valuable.
Yeah.
Yes, Espanol is poquito.
Uh-huh.
We need Spanish language stations. We need
Yeah.
flyers
We do. So, yeah,
in advance.
that's another, but that's just an example. So, anyway.
They also have the neighborhood association boards, which then
Yeah.
place up on the county, who has all the neighborhood association boards that do all those nights out. Have you guys heard about that?
Oh, yeah.
They go to all the different.
Yeah.
It's organized.
Yeah.
Daryl Dady.
Daryl Davy, yes. County.
So
That's
there-
another.
And I can't make all the neighborhood association meetings, particularly on a night out. So, if we did something like that.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that he has all that information. He could probably ship
Send it.
something out to them easier than what
Mhm.
any of us could.
And some of that is automatic in
Yeah.
that the SOARB meeting that was announced is also included in Burnco at a glance.
Yeah.
Which then is redistributed.
Yeah.
So then it
Yeah,
already
it
goes
is
out?
going out.
Okay.
It does, because I get that from my neighbor. I get it from the county and I get it from my neighborhood association forwarding it.
And also anytime the agenda is published, it goes out to every media and to the
Great.
neighborhood and everything. So it gets out there.
Good.
It's just,
Okay. Yeah, and yeah. If there's nothing further on that right now, go ahead, to B, 7B, revised, modified subcommittee, it says Vice Chair
Yeah,
Strong.
this was just the continuing agenda item for
Yeah.
any updates from anybody on committees or subcommittees or any new subcommittees. And I guess we have not really a new subcommittee, but we have now Jim drafted willingly, I'm sure, to help with the scheduling of a meeting in the South Valley.
Okay. Anything else on that right now? Any subcommittee reports, any restructuring? I don't know how many we included in the last annual report. Some are not active at this point. Probably
Right.
need to be stricken and others added. So that might just be housekeeping. You have something? Elaine?
Well, I would like us to consider perhaps having some training around, I hate to say DEI because it's so overused, but looking at underserved communities, looking at, what our language and how it can be interpreted by communities as maybe not as positive. And so looking at those kinds of things and seeing if we could get the county commission to pony up just a small bit of money to get, that training. And I'm willing to take a look and see what that possibility is, but, we can never have too much education around different communities and different ways of looking at things. And so I would like to propose, and I could be a part of that.
Towards that, you brought us some literature.
Yes, it's all about underserved communities
Okay.
and kind of the definition. And actually, it was Maha, she's not on anymore, who had mentioned the president's kind of thing. So I took some of that and I didn't know she was going to be quoting the same thing, but I think it has value. And so just understanding that component, and perhaps we could consider that. And like I said, I'd be happy to take it on, and anybody else, I would be happy to share that responsibility. So
So you're proposing a new subcommittee on
that would look at
And you said
Possible.
DEI?
diversity, equity,
And
inclusion.
Okay,
And you're suggesting that we have training.
I'm just showing you that I need education.
I appreciate that. I do.
suggesting that the board.
There you go.
Or that the board gets the DEI training?
Yeah, the board, just the SOARB board, not the sheriffs or, I think that would be much more complex. So just kind of the SOARB board.
Our in-house HR does DEI training for the employees and for
Am I
everyone.
gonna have to start putting my pronouns on?
Yeah.
You may not have to ask for money, you just may have to say if they could do one for us.
And has the feedback been positive when they've?
We even have a DEI committee.
Oh, really?
Oh, that'd be.
I know what you're saying. Sorry. I know
But
what
I'm
you're
sure
saying.
they have like an outline or something, yes?
They did send out a survey, which I participated in. Guess he didn't fill his out.
Yeah.
And the survey came back pretty good. I mean, we had, remember we hadn't had a employee that came out of it.
We had,
An employee that in years, where
Oh.
people get like 15 years recognized
oh, wow.
for their services and all that, and they just had it on March.
It was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Danette, could
It was
you
employee
reach out and
I
do
can
that,
reach
or
out
I
to
can
HR.
let
He's
me
a
know what I
very, very
need?
good trainer. We stole him
Okay.
from the
All
city.
right, so Elena's a subcommittee of one so far.
So
on
far.
Our DEI subcommittee, if she'll accept that acronym. And-
I will do that.
and Danette will
Yeah, Danette and I will visit on
see
that.
what resources can be made
Yeah.
available to us for that.
That'd be great. Thank you, Danette.
Anything else on subcommittees? Item C, follow up on recent matters involving BCSO, Jewell, Strongin. I think Maya's seen that. Madam Vice Chair, when she called me and said, can we discuss these things? And I said, sure. The sheriff may not be a part of that conversation,
Right.
but certainly news is blowing up in this community on policing stuff. I mean.
Yeah.
Well, APD is the negative stuff, but the sheriff was certainly involved in catching the guy that's a suspect in killing the.
He was just indicted federally this afternoon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I saw Sheriff Jareno at that press conference, so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's just a tremendous amount going on with respect to law enforcement. And some of it, as we have been told, they will not comment on.
Right.
And so I suspect that we're not gonna get much comment from them, but that doesn't stop us from discussing stuff
Or asking questions.
or asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason the first 2 items under C are just two recent matters that involve the sheriff's office. One, and there are areas that SOARB has been interested in, I guess, since the beginning. And the first one is a sad story of a veteran who had mental health issues and was not armed with a gun. I believe might have been armed with a knife. And anyway, the sheriff's office was called to intervene, and it ended up that this veteran was shot and killed. So again, that's something that's currently under investigation. I have not read anything saying that the sheriff's office acted improperly in any way. It's just an issue that we have followed, and some of the press, this article, I think, does talk about the Elaine Maestas case that we.
Yeah, Alicia Lucero.
Right, yeah. So anyway, so that's why that's on there, just to follow up with the sheriff at some point in the future to see if there is a comment. The second one involves, it looks like it was some sort of an altercation among sheriff's deputies who were off duty.
I think when a DWI stopped and they learned about something, it was a Super Bowl Sunday or something.
Yeah, it was a whole complicated series of events. And again, it's currently under investigation. I believe it was an interaction between the off-duty deputies and maybe the Rio Rancho police or with the other.
Rio Rancho.
Okay,
and
so.
That's where the arrest happened, but
Right.
it was a deputy under the influence. And so we've had at least a couple of cases that
Right.
involved under the influence. And one, I know of recent was the gentleman, the deputy brandished off duty, I believe, brandishing a gun at a gas station or
Yeah.
convenience store or something. And so I think that resulted in some charges against him, and probably it's not appropriate for them to comment on. But we
Right.
need to be cognizant of it. And we even need to be cognizant and probably asking, look, are we monitoring who's showing up for court? Mr. Sheriff, do we
That's a
know
good-
our deputies aren't involved in a scheme to
Reduce penalties for
yeah,
pay,
and
so to speak.
not show up for DWI or whatever? What safeguards are in place there?
I think that's a good way to put it. What safeguards are currently in place
So,
for
so
BCSO?
again, there's nothing wrong with us keeping our finger on the pulse and discussing these things. And if it results in us needing to ask questions, by all means, let's ask.
Actually, I think that's a really good issue to put on the agenda and to let the sheriff know that we would like an answer to, if he cares to give it at our next meeting.
Mhm.
Just, are there procedures in place to monitor, so that we don't get another situation where, the DA says it was the APA.
Yeah, and of course, they have that criminal justice coordinating council, and having worked in the justice system, my feeling is when the actors in those systems talk, it's better because situations are gonna arise, and then you get the finger poke, and they even in that circumstance, there's somebody they accuse the judge. The judge should know everybody that's coming into court. They should have been on top of it. Maybe they should have, who knows? But
I would think
that-
all the participants, the government participants should be
there's
involved.
enough coming through that system that I, having been a Metro judge, would not know who's appearing where. So, but
I wonder if, Jim, if in your former sheriff's office, was there some mechanism or procedure for monitoring if deputies showed up at court dates or did not, and then following up as to why not? You did, you had a system. Okay.
I would assume that would be a component.
Maybe you used to, because I know when we were tracking like domestic violence ones, when an officer didn't show up, it was a big deal.
Well, we
And
went through,
so-
Elena, a process of making sure that their court time
Mhm.
was coordinated from their perspective.
Right.
So that it was convenient for them to come to court. Not only that, but I think, they got whatever it is, off-duty pay, time and a half or whatever to show up. I mean, so I can't imagine that there wouldn't be systems in place for everybody. But I don't know to what extent there's coordination and there probably needs to be. So anyway.
Can we ask the sheriff for updates on things that we've already brought up, but yet have not yet had a resolution, so that it's so they know that we're still wanting an update, like when we did the chokehold stuff and trying to find out that, and they said, well, there was an investigation. And just like, oh, well, we've talked to, IA and we have an investigation continuing, or whatever that is. But so I think it's really easy for us to forget it instead of just going forward. So just so that we can.
What came out of it? Yeah.
And we did actually, on the case that you mentioned, the sheriff wasn't able to comment for a certain period of time. And then we did get an update, and there was, definitive action taken in that case. So,
In
yeah.
the sheriff's incident.
No, this is in what Elena called the chokehold incident.
Which incident was it?
That was when he was in the
store, the
shoplifter. Yeah.
So we're talking.
And Jim had sent us that information around.
We don't
what
know
it
that
is and
he
what it's-
committed a chokehold.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, we
That's
don't
right.
know.
Some
But-
people
but
think
we're
the
talking
picture
apples.
looks like that.
Right.
We're talking apples. We're talking about the same situation.
Okay, but we need to
And
be
that-
careful
that
what
hasn't
we
been
say.
changed. That hasn't.
There's no public statements.
Oh,
in the
Yeah, I
matter.
didn't know that there was.
I don't know of any, yeah.
I'm actually thinking of the other incident that involved the deputy who ended up resigning.
Oh, no. I was-
Oh, that
And
was the East Mountain situation where he takes the woman and they took employment action.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
that one.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, now that's a different circumstance, and we probably don't know if because he was making an employment complaint. And we don't know if that's been resolved or how, if it was resolved, it was resolved.
It's under The litigation umbrella.
Litigation.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Judge,
Yes.
if I may, that deputy was trying to drag us into an
Yeah.
employment
Right,
discussion and
right. And that's why he weighed in actually on the
Right, on the
On
chokehold,
the-
that's right.
yeah, so
issue.
Pardon the
y'all
reference.
find that it's not our role to get into personnel matters. We
Right.
just
Right.
act off.
Yeah.
All right, well, so moving on, the third item here, which I understand some people who aren't on Facebook couldn't access. And by the way, I thank Estevan for bringing all of these items to our attention. It's just actually a very complimentary thing that it's just a video of a BCSO deputy who approached a person living on the street who was apparently lacked housing and lacked food. And he bought the guy a meal and offered to find him shelter and transport him to a center. And I think the guy declined, but it was a very thoughtful interaction and caring.
I wonder is there a fund for that? I mean, our
Fund?
deputies are pretty well paid, but if they can
I don't think. you
use
could-
that
I
rather
think
than
that-
coming out of their own pockets, that sure would be good.
That would be another interesting
Yeah.
issue to pursue with the sheriff. And maybe there should be an opportunity for the public to donate.
Well, this unit that we had going down is initiating contact with people on the street.
Diane Dosell's
Dosell.
page,
And she
right.
has a lot of resources
Does she?
on there. Yeah.
Is that something that they're doing?
We could ask.
Offering meals?
Yes, well, I at least, putting people in touch with
Service.
services, but this was a case where the deputy actually, he felt sorry, he was moved by the situation and he gave him a meal. Which the guy seemed very happy to accept, so. Anyway, so that's the only reason that's on there, because it's sort of a counterpoint to some of the other things.
So I think we need to keep our finger on the pulse of some of the public stuff, some of the news reporting. Because that's another area, it makes sense to me that we need to make sure that we hold the sheriff accountable to some of these, whether positive or negative, some of these things that have appeared in the press that people may be asking us about. Whatever happened on that deal? Daniel, yeah.
So I am also involved in the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. And there's a program run with BCSO and APD, we call LEAD, where they help people on the street either get housing or services rather than just go to jail. Because it's a little different than what law enforcement traditionally does. They're actually hosting an award for those deputies and officers that participate here on May 7th in the chambers.
Oh, wow.
If you all wanted to attend. The idea is to get the word out to other law enforcement officers and deputies to know, so they can know that option is out there. It's not just the jail.
At what time did you say?
It's May at 3 p.m.
Oh, and by the way, just to clarify, I think in the video from Facebook, it wasn't that this person who was living on the street had committed a crime. It was simply that this officer took the initiative to reach out to him. So.
Well, and of course, the antithesis of that is, the police riding down Central and seeing a homeless camp there and saying, okay, you guys need to come bust this homeless camp. Well, there's a gun out here. So,
That's just.
being cognizant of that situation, while we like the sheriff, perhaps to be proactive in his approach to stuff, we don't want to.
That made national news.
I'm sure it did.
My friends in New York asked me about.
Anyway,
Unfortunate.
anything else before we move to the next board meeting?
Okay.
What are we thinking? I think is this on our usual Friday?
That's April 12th.
April 12th.
Is there a problem?
April 12th, next meeting?
There's not like a.
if
When
that
is
is.
Easter?
We're off the 20, Easter is
When
actually
is
March 31st.
March 30th.
Easter's early.
Oh, wow. So when are we at?
So it's not
That Friday
Friday.
before.
Easter bunny.
So we're,
Oh, no, that's-
we're all okay with April 12th?
April 12th.
At one here
We're off
or
March.
somewhere in the building.
Yeah.
Maybe the road.
Hearing no objection, April 12th will be our date. Same time, 1 o'clock, you all?
That's fine.
Are we going to have possible dates for meetings by then? That would be nice to have.
Possible.
You mean for the community,
Listening
like the listening session and also just having our meetings at a separate place, either one?
Either
Okay.
something so that we're moving
Give
forward.
it a good shot.
And so that Estevan can move forward.
Shoot, so we can get this room.
Yeah, I usually book it right after. the
Well, I'm
meeting.
sorry, we don't have anything, but there's a closet on the 3rd floor. Oh, we're gonna have public speakers.
I usually, right after our meeting, I
Wait a
book
minute,
it
you
and
guys see the
then.
chambers.
Well, I got the Ponderosa room. I mean, I thought it was a steakhouse.
I know, really, I really do.
You know what? The people were done in here and I made them, no, I didn't make them leave. I asked them politely if they would cancel the rest of their meeting so that I could bump in, because if they don't cancel it, then I have to reset all of the things.
Well, I tell you what, you all have made us feel so important. Thank you so much. So let's see if we can replicate that next meeting.
Yes.
Have somebody giving the sheriff an attaboy, have somebody saying, hey, we can do better.
I'm just saying, if we get those dates running, then we can get the sheriff and
Right.
Estevan going.
Yeah.
You know, I
Keep an
did
eye on
think,
it.
actually, one of the comments that came in, I'm sorry to
That's all
backtrack,
right.
but it just occurred to me, it was one of the written comments.
Yeah, did you put that in the record?
We should.
This written comment.
Melanie Wood's comment.
Yeah.
She wrote a
It's in
lot.
there.
I don't know
It's
if
in
it,
there, okay.
it was suggesting that, you know, the board have more members of the underserved community as board members now.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
But we have an
But
opening.
we can give recommendations or to the county commission. So while we may not say you should do this, we could say it was raised, you know, so there are members of the community who feel this way. And then they have to,
We do have an opening, so.
yeah.
And the net,
We don't
District
appoint the board members. though.
District 1, that's right. So I don't know if I need to speak with that commissioner or just bring to the attention of the county commission that there's an opening that needs to be filled. We made that known at the council meeting that we appeared at. And so now we're at least a month or two past that, so.
Yeah, who is the commissioner for District 1? Is it?
Sheriff Baca.
Oh, it is. Oh,
I'll send an email.
so that
to
solves that.
Kelly.
problem.
I'll send an email
Okay.
to Kelly and see.
All right.
And her assistant.
Mr. Stewart.
Judge, if I might, and this, there's not really a spot in here for me to bring this up. I'm not looking to throw a flopping fish on the table that we have to try to catch. But I could go back to the definition of underserved. This is all well and good. It's probably the only practitioner of public safety in the room here. You know, at the sheriff's office for 8 years, and then subsequent to that, 7 months leading the vaccination effort in Brazos County until the system was able to take it over. I was continually being approached about, well, what are you doing about the underserved community? And my first question would be, well, what are you talking about? Who are you talking about? And then they would articulate that. And I'd say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. Or we huddle up and, you know, it's people that don't have cars. So we went to the public transportation system and got them to agree to drive a bus to that person's house and bring them to the vaccination hub. You know, that's just one example. You know, so and I'm sure Sheriff Allen, if you said, what are you doing about the underserved community? That's the first thing that pops in his head too, is what are you talking about? Elena knows me well. You know, I volunteered. I was the president of the Sexual Assault Resource Center board. I was on the NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, local chapter board. I'm on the state board here in New Mexico. I have a heart for people that need help. But to be get thrown under the bus because, and, you know, I read that and I thought, no, and I dwelled on it all last night, like, no. No one does more for the community. Well, I'm sure a lot of people do, but Jim Stewart does a lot for the community and will continue to do so as long as I'm around. So I would just ask you to keep that in mind when we use the term underserved. You know, what are you talking about? What requirement are we not serving? And that's why we kind of wrestled with it when we were doing the strategic plan is how do we identify what that is? And Elena is pretty clearly pointed out, there's a lot of verbiage out there that articulates that. So that's great. But when we try to get to specific solutions, what problem set are we trying to solve? I would just ask y'all to keep that.
And I'll just make a little comment because I think it's a much larger conversation that we could have maybe at another meeting where, you know, the board is together and maybe even with the DEI person, you know, available. I think those are conversations. But I do think that it's not black and white, so to speak. And there is multiple levels. I mean, you know, if you just talk transgendered and all of that group, and then you talk disability and all of the different components of that. So trying to say this is what it is a very almost impossible matter to say it's one thing, and it's not, because there are multiple levels. There are, like I said, CDC defines it as one way, VAWA-VOCA, FIPSA define it, but there are similarities to what that is. And so I think it's a much bigger conversation. And I think maybe if we talk to this person, that's one of the components we can ask them to delve into. And then you and I, we can talk.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, for, you know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and keep in mind also, I have great appreciation for what you do individually, and certainly you do a whole lot. But it's not about us.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, this is about the sheriff's office. And the question is, what are they doing?
Right.
And so, like you're saying, you know, if you ask the sheriff, well, I don't know what he would say. He might say, yeah, he might say, Jewell, I got this. So bow out. You know, I don't know. And so, I mean, being a funnel for that conversation, I think it certainly behooves us to know, kind of know what we're talking about. But at the same time, being able to communicate that to who it ultimately falls to serve is important as well. So.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think we can all do better at trying to make sure that we are.
So Elena, some
inclusive in
insensitive
doing that.
language was inartful or insensitive language, which you personally, I apologize to any who, you know, just like this woman said, some idiot got on the news and said that there wasn't accountability. Oh my God, let me go back. What did
Was that me?
was that?
Which idiot?
We've got a lot of them.
Why would say that? Oh, no.
I do have to go because my parking is about
Yeah,
to
that's about
expire.
Us too.
I think you all have comfortably made me
Thank
miss
you.
the Lobo loss.
I'll
Have
tell
they
Barbara
lost?
Baca we stood up for
Hey,
him.
here's the bus.
Yeah. Thank you.